Iris invites Jack to stay at her family's island getaway after his brother's passing. However, as Jack arrives at the house, he encounters her sister, Hannah. Things take an interesting turn that shakes up both relationships. The story opens up with family and friends gathered in Tom's name. While everyone is retelling their stories of Tom while looking at his pictures, his brother Jack can be seen standing on the side away from everyone. One of Tom's close friends catches everyone's attention to deliver a speech about how great of a friend Tom had been. He goes on about how he had been the best, not forgetting to mention the great favors he had done for him. Also, he mentions a movie they had seen and how seeing it now only reminds him of how Tom started donating right after watching it. How he was the guy who always did what he promised to do. Raising his beer, they toast in his name once again. As they sit in their seats, Jack chimes in, adding that he and Tom shared an interest in movies as well. However, he reveals that while watching Revenge of the Nerds, Tom had changed completely and that he was Tom that nobody knew. He says that Tom had been a bully in school, and while seeing what happens to them in movies, his brain had clicked and he had become a better guy just to win in life. The friend tries to cut him off, but Jack doesn't let him. He even asks why he's trying to make his brother look bad, so Jack explains that he's not trying to make him look bad but rather trying to be realistic. It's dishonest to the man, and Jack thinks that they should say his pros and cons. The friend tries to wrap up his speech, but Jack lets him know that he's going to say everything he wants to, reminding them that he knew him fully and they didn't. He raises a glass to the beautiful man before storming off. Iris follows him outside the room. Knowing what he had just done, he slowly bangs his head against the wall. She approaches him lightly, poking fun at his speech. Luckily, he's not upset but rather accepting of the situation. With a serious look, she tells him to stop acting the way he's acting. She knows he's sad, and she is as well, but she misses her best friend. Realizing how hard it must have been for her, he lets her know that he understands her pain. Changing the topic, he reveals that he had rejected the Trinity job offer because he doesn't want to go there in the emotional state that he is, assuming that they might not hire him again. He compares his decision to the party, given his outburst. Iris's responsibility as his best friend is to be honest with him, so she tells him that whatever he's doing is not helping because he is a mess. Not knowing what to do anymore, he begs her just to tell him what to do, and she assures him that there's a plan. She tells him to dust his red bike off and get it fixed for the road because he's going to her father's villa on the island. Confused, he starts complaining, but once she makes fun of him, he accepts her offer, longing for a chance. So, the following morning, we see Jack dust off his bike before getting on the road. He calls Iris on the way there to ask about everything, from where to location as to what he can do there. Iris tells him that there are no distractions there and that the only thing he can do is sit and watch the lake. He begs her to come visit, but she reminds him that it's his journey, and she wouldn't want to be a distraction. Accepting her decision, he jokingly asks her to bring deodorant and a razor if he doesn't come back in a week. As he hangs up the phone, his long journey begins. He rides through town, villages, roads, and rails until he finally gets to the villa late in the evening. Seeing the front light on, he gets weirded out, so he approaches the house carefully. He looks around trying to find the key, but given that it's not there, he decides to go around the house. However, peeking at the first window, he sees a woman freshly in the shower. Seeing her only in a t-shirt piques his interest, so he tries to get a better look. However, she turns her head towards him and, not wanting to be seen, he jumps back, hitting something and making noises. Peeking back to see whether she's seen him, he notices that she's not there, so he tries to flee. The woman walks out of the house with a bat, ready to swing. But once she gets closer, Jack recognizes that she's Iris's sister. He quickly yells out his name, and once she's convinced that it's really him, she lowers the bat and walks inside. An awkward silence fills the room before Jack comes clean about trying to find the key and not to creep on her. She tells him about the bell, but he explains that he had thought no one was home. Not wanting to disrupt her stay, he suggests getting a room at a cheap hotel, but she assures him that it'll be fine if he stays. She offers him some dried banana that doesn't look appetizing to him, so he decides to go to bed. Finding it hard to fall asleep, he opens his book to read but quickly hears something coming from the kitchen. He finds Hannah drinking by herself, so he asks whether he can join. Given that she's drinking by herself at 3 in the morning, he asks what's the cause. She is surprised by his upfrontness, so he informs her that he doesn't like small talk. They change the topic to her slipper but fall back to the topic of her problems. She reveals walking out of a 7-year relationship, and all Jack can say is wow. Asking about his situation, she's not surprised to hear that he had a terrible year. They go further down the line of getting to know each other when Hannah asks about his brother. She beats herself for it, apologizing for asking such a dumb question after knowing what had happened. For the first time, Jack accepts the fact that his brother's gone and that's life, which is what he tells her. While they're on the topic of siblings, he tells Iris that she's nothing like he expected her to be. They start joking and downing their shots fast, some in honor of their siblings. After a couple of shots, Hannah opens up about her relationship, revealing that she felt unappreciated and not loved by her girlfriend Pam. Stopping her from saying anything more, he tells her that he's gotten the gist of it and claims that Pam is a moron not to have noticed how gorgeous she is. To prove his point, he compliments her butt, calling it perfect, and he lets her know that their night would have ended differently if she didn't like girls. Hannah can't help but laugh at his drunken comments, but they do end up toasting in her butt's name. Seeing the dried bananas on the table only reminds him of turds, so he suggests cooking a delicious steak for dinner. She informs him about being a vegetarian, but he doesn't seem to care as he assures her that she'll love it. They settle on going to the store and buying everything they need, but as they're about to go, Hannah tells him that she'll take his offer. Confused, he stares at her waiting for an explanation, so she tells him that she wants to sleep with him. Given that they're both single, she doesn't see a problem in them having some fun. Jack is shocked and doesn't know how to react, but we see them going to the bedroom soon. They lay on the bed kissing, but right as they're about to do it, Jack remembers that he doesn't have a condom. Hannah grunts in annoyance but quickly remembers that she has one. Shortly, they get the job done, and even though Hannah is unimpressed, she stays cuddling with him in bed. In the morning, Jack drags himself out of bed only to see Iris taking out some groceries out of the trunk. His eyes widen as he hurries to clean the room and wake Hannah up. As she opens her eyes, he tells her that they've never hooked up and he runs out to hide from Iris. Hannah walks into the kitchen and Iris is surprised to see her there. Embracing her in a hug, Iris smiles ear to ear as she sees his sister for the first time after a long time. Soon after, Jack walks in all wet pretending to have been on a run. Iris is excited for them to meet each other, unaware of what they've done just the night prior. She runs to the bathroom, so Hannah takes the chance to tell Jack that he has poured a little too much water on his shirt. Going to the room they slept in, Hannah tries to change the sheets, but Iris tells her that it's fine. In the middle of changing, Hannah tells Iris that she has broken up with her longtime partner, and Iris can't believe it. She asks about the details, but Hannah decides to change the sheets first. They decide to cook lunch, and as they do, they continue the discussion about the breakup. Iris calls Pam all sorts of names while Hannah tries to defend her in every way possible. While trying to describe herself in a metaphor, Iris asks Jack what she had told him the previous night. His eyes widen as she mentions the previous night, and even Hannah is surprised to hear that she has confided in him. Wanting to ask her not to speak about the previous night, Jack takes the chance to ask Iris for some herbs, so he and Hannah would be left alone. As soon as Iris exits the house, Jack begs Hannah not to say anything because he thinks that it'll be weird. Hannah is confused as to why Iris would be fazed by the fact that they've hooked up, but she quickly realizes that it might be because Jack likes her. Iris comes back shortly, but after the talk with Jack, Hannah refuses to talk about her relationship. In the evening, we see them enjoying dinner when the house gets mentioned. The sisters reveal that their shared father would jump from one mother to another, and while it had been a great childhood for Hannah, Iris considers it gross because of what he was doing. Sarcastically, Jack wonders who would do such a thing when he remembers that Iris is the same. He starts mentioning all the guys she dated back and forth. Getting up, he thoroughly explains her dating experience and how she'd take them to her favorite cafe and disappear the following week. He lets her know that she has great taste in life but horrible taste in men, and she says the same thing about his clothing. Trying to joke on his behalf, she mentions his jean shorts and they start laughing at the memories. Hannah interrupts their laughter by mentioning the guy who had told Iris to trim her bush. Iris starts laughing out of embarrassment and Jack starts to feel uncomfortable. Hannah continues the story, but Iris yells at her to stop. Hannah laughs and continues to eat her food. Wanting to get a swing at her, Iris asks how she's enjoying the mashed potatoes and Hannah says that they're lovely. Iris asks whether they taste vegan, and realizing that they're probably not, Hannah spits them out while repeating that what they've done is not cool. As a prank, they've thought that adding 1 dollop of butter would be funny, but Hannah doesn't find it funny one bit. Getting her plate, she gets up ready to go to bed. Everyone goes to bed, but Iris is struggling to fall asleep. Late into the night, she gets out of her bed and heads to where Hannah is sleeping. Getting into bed with her, she tells her that she can't fall asleep, so Hannah suggests sleeping with her. Hannah is already asleep and doesn't seem interested in whatever Iris has to say, but Iris asks one question. She asks Hannah whether she likes Jack, and Hannah tries to keep her answer short, letting her know that he's alright. Iris knows that she's good at judging people, so she asks her to be more specific. Once again, Hannah calls him nice and smart, but she adds that he's a great cook. Chiming in, Iris continues to praise him, so Hannah asks whether she likes him. She tries to play it off, so Hannah asks once again, and this time Iris admits to being in love with him. A look of guilt can be noticed on her face as she feels weird for liking her deceased ex-boyfriend's brother. Turning around to face her, Hannah assures her that it's not weird or normal. Iris reveals that he had made a move on her, and while he had felt guilty, she had liked his move. Not knowing whether to tell him or not, she asks Hannah and she advises her to sleep on it. Iris starts going on about it again, but Hannah tells her to sleep on it in her bed. Before she goes back to her room, Iris tells her that she loves her and wishes her good night. Walking out, she sees the lights on where Jack's sleeping, so she decides to see whether he's up. To her luck, she sees him reading a book in his bed, and once he sees her, he invites her in. Sitting down on the bed, she asks what he thinks of Hannah, and he repeatedly claims that she's great. After asking what they did the previous night, she asks whether he thinks Hannah's pretty. Choking on his words, he tries to be careful in what he says after having intercourse with her. He calls her pretty and Iris mocks him for the way he says it. Changing the topic, Iris reveals that they're in Hannah's room. He is surprised as to why she put him there, and Iris reveals that she doesn't like her room. Given that she hasn't even unpacked yet, Iris reaches for her paintings. She pulls out some great artwork and Jack is surprised to see how good she really is. Feeling guilty, Jack decides to confess what they've done the previous night. Iris listens carefully as she hopes that he will confess to being in love with her. Unfortunately, Jack doesn't gather the courage. Instead, he jokes about being too old to ride a bike. They end up falling asleep in the bed, and Iris gets woken up by his foot in her face. Waking him up, she tells him that his foot had woken her up, and as revenge, she shows hers in his face. For breakfast, Hannah had decided to make them some soy-free, gluten-free pancakes. She serves them all excited, but as they try them, they try not to spit them out. However, they tell her that they taste amazing, but once Hannah sits down to try them, the truth is exposed. They start laughing and Jack tries to make her feel better by blaming it on the lack of ingredients rather than on her. Seeing her sister smile makes her happy, so Iris raises her mug for a toast while saying "screw Pam." Jokingly, she advises her not to screw Pam as she can screw anyone she wants. The possibilities are endless, which is why Iris thinks that she should fulfill her biggest wish and have a baby. Hannah tries to change the subject as she begins to feel uncomfortable, but Iris asks her not to. It's as easy as getting one guy to sleep with, so Iris advises Hannah to get pregnant as soon as possible. Jack stays silent as he realizes that the potential guy could be him, given Hannah's biggest wish. To clear up his mind, he decides to grab more coffee while Iris takes the opportunity to get some alone time with her sister by taking a walk. Before they go, Jack pulls Hannah aside to ask whether she'd done something to get pregnant. She reminds him that they used a preservative and he calms down instantly. He gives her a high five while apologizing and she thinks nothing of it. The sisters go for a walk and come down to the cabin. As they're walking to the entrance, Iris doesn't stop talking about Jack. She thinks that she should tell him because they slept in the same bed the previous night, and there was no fuss about it. She explains that there is an ease in their relationship that she doesn't think will fade away after she comes clean. Before they enter the house, she notices that Hannah is strangely quiet, so she asks why she is. Back at the villa, Jack tries to relax by reading his book, but the thought of her poking holes in the condom doesn't leave his mind. Having doubts, he gets up and scavenges through the trash can to find the used condom. Once he finds it, he heads to the bathroom to check whether she's poked holes in it. Feeling guilty for not telling her about their intercourse, Hannah sits Iris down and decides to come clean. Jack quickly finds out that the condom has many holes in it and starts to panic. At the same time, we see Iris storming out of the cabin and running back to the villa. Entering the house, she looks for Jack until she finds him and reveals that she knows everything. Jack tries defending himself by mentioning the condom. Hannah comes between them, trying to resolve the situation, but Jack demands she tell Iris about the condom. He tells Iris about the condom and Iris starts questioning her as to why. Amidst the chaos, Hannah decides to come clean. She admits to wanting to get pregnant, and that it didn't matter to her from whom. Iris becomes visibly upset, asking her stepsister why she had to choose him out of all the guys in the world. At the top of her lungs, Hannah screams that she hadn't known about her love for Jack, and the room becomes quiet. Terrified of Hannah's words, Iris is at a loss for words, and Hannah takes the chance to assure her that she would never hurt her at any given chance. All she wants to do is get pregnant. The whole time the sisters are screaming at each other, Jack keeps quiet as he's trying to process the fact that he might be a father. He keeps quiet as Iris leaves, even when Hannah tells him that she's a bad person. As the night falls, we see Iris lying by herself in the cabin. Jack walks into the room and kneels next to the bed. He apologizes for sleeping with her sister, and Iris wonders why he'd done it, assuming that he must have felt weird. Even if she never found out, she wonders whether he would have felt weird carrying the secret with him and still hanging out with her. Despite being confused himself, he tries to come up with an answer. He assumes that he might have slept with her because she has slept with his brother, but doesn't even believe that himself. All he knows is that he doesn't want to stand between them as their bond is very important. Iris rolls her eyes, letting him know that she doesn't want to do anything with her. Instead of pitting them against each other, he assures Iris that Hannah loves her a lot. Finally, he admits to making the worst mistake of his life that he deeply regrets. A tear falls down her eye and he wipes it off before breaking down. Before he goes, he finally lets the truth out. Looking at her with tears in his eyes, he admits to sleeping with her sister only because he couldn't be with her. His words break her heart and she begins sobbing to herself. All he says is that he has to go, and as she asks whether he'll come back, he storms out of the door, not looking back. In the morning, Jack takes some time to himself before getting on the road. Iris decides to ignore Hannah, and every time she tries to get closer to her, she runs away. Despite the occasional food sharing, they stay away from each other's space. Jack tries to take his journey back seriously, setting up a tent here and there to rest, and making sure he doesn't burn out. The sisters continue not talking to each other but stay in the same house. Hannah decides to take up her old habit of painting, trying to use her time for good since her sister is giving her the silent treatment. As they're sitting in the living room, Hannah tries to lighten up the tension by letting Iris know that she's sorry. Eventually, it works. They start spending their mornings together and even doing some fun activities they used to do as younglings. The silence turns to laughter and they soon go back to the way they were, accepting the mistake Hannah and Jack made. Finally, they talk about the potential baby one evening before they go to bed. Sitting in silence, Iris finally speaks up, only to let her sister know that she's willing to help around if she does end up pregnant. It makes Hannah smile and she thanks her for the understanding and the support. They turn to face each other and bump their elbows to assure one another that everything will be fine. After riding the long roads and giving his all to get into town, Jack ends up falling asleep at the table in a local diner. A waitress comes by to refill his coffee, and he wakes up apologizing for falling asleep. Taking a sip of his coffee, he sees some children at a table having fun, and it gets him thinking. Despite having doubts, he goes on the road only to have his bike chain break in the middle of riding. He tries fixing it, but as he gets back on it, he realizes that it's still broken. The anger and sadness finally catch up to him. Parking his bike by a trash can, he lets it all out on it as he starts smashing it from the ground. Kneeling down on the broken bike, he stays quiet for a while before making the decision that will change his life. After going on their morning walk, the sisters head back to the house only to be surprised by Jack there. Not letting them say anything, he asks them to listen to what he has to say. Spending some time by himself had made him realize that he has nothing. He admits to being unemployed, financially unstable, emotionally cramped, and not in the best time in his life to be a father or a boyfriend. However, he's tired of being miserable and wants to become alive again. If there's a baby, he assures Hannah that he'll be there to take care of it every step of the way. Turning to Iris, he admits to not deserving her but promises to give her everything he has if she lets him. With tears in her eyes, Iris steps closer to him, embracing him in a hug. They express their love for each other before asking Hannah to jump in. Finally, Jack and Iris share a kiss they've been secretly waiting for. In the end, they get a pregnancy test and prepare for the biggest change in their lives.